I am affectionately calling Hot Mess Express, but I was thinking, Steph, when I was doing this, espre- Hot Mess Express. Oh,
I
because
love it.
Stephanie and I are just grabbing our cup of coffee and we're just gonna chat like we do in the normal times. And so it's gonna be a fun time. So I've got my cup, she's got her cup, and we are gonna get started after a sip.
Well, listen, like it's been a couple weeks, and the last time we got together, because we always talk about pressing some buttons and doing some things. Yeah, we had all the technical problems, and we even almost started this morning with. But I think this and the hot, mess express or espresso is exactly that. It's to push through all of those things that are going to be thrown at you every single day. As a small business owner, as a member of a leadership team, as somebody who is consulting or strategizing with clients, things aren't always going to go as planned.
Exactly.
And so just embrace it. And actually, if you go with the especially as somebody who does works on a lot of events, you just assume something's going to go wrong. You almost plan for that moment. Now, obviously, with us showing up, pushing the buttons, and just doing it, it's kind of how we roll, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
So, with that, as you're pushing buttons, and I'm going to start pushing some buttons, I'm going to throw it back to you, do a quick intro, and let's just chitty chat about all the
Ooh,
things.
yes, exactly. So my name is Elizabeth Doss, and I am a social media consultant, a content creator, and an animated GIF artist. I help brands and businesses with animated GIFs across social to be able to use them to increase engagement, to build thought leadership, and really just build community across the way. My GIFs have been viewed over, I think it's 6 billion times now. And
Wowza.
my clients, we've helped over 50 different accounts, and now they are over 4 billion in themselves of having real estate in this weird little corner of the internet. And so that is who I am. So Steph, I'm gonna hand it to you. Please tell me all of the things about
As I'm literally going, wait, now we're talking about the hot mess espresso.
well, that is my hot mess express. But
Uh,
your 10-year-old is not a hot mess express. She's a
no,
vibrant
no,
10
no,
year
it is
old.
not. I'm like literally hot mess espresso. Come say hi. Listen, guys, this is how we roll. So yeah, if you've not ever jumped into this crazy Tuesday morning little jam we've got going on, Cultivate. We typically do it every Tuesday morning. We stream across multiple platforms live at the same time. Why, you ask? Because why not? We are trying to gather all of the things and make our lives a little bit easier. Because as Elizabeth introduced herself and you heard about what she does for a living and all of that strategy and all of that sparking of joy with all of those gifts that are being viewed, I'm wearing the other hat. And as the founder and the chief
Mhm.
strategist, the brand architect, if you will, behind Take Roots Consulting, I work with solopreneurs, small business owners, to mid-size on again building that strategy in the more traditional way with the PR and marketing, and also that little plus sign, the non-traditional, or what we
Yeah.
was used to call it back in the day of what is this thing called social media. How do
Yeah.
you revamp your website? How do you do a blog? How do you start a podcast? How do you do all of those things to get your message out? And so for me, it's a little bit of an integrated approach that I take when I'm working with my clients, whether they're nonprofits, planning that first or that annual event and doing some fundraising and talking fund development, to yes, writing that news release to make that big announcement to launch that new product or service. There's so many elements that come into play. And so I wear a lot of different hats depending on the type of client that I'm working with. And that's what happens when you've been doing this for over 25 years. You take a little bit of this and a little bit of that and all of those learnings, and you put it together to actually create a strategy that works for companies. And a lot of the time, the strategy, the first thing I say is show up. And that's what we're doing. A
Yes.
hot mess and all on a Tuesday morning. Cheers, Elizabeth.
Maybe we should sip every time we say hot mess.
Oh, I kind of like that.
This,
That would make my speed to which I speak much faster in about
yes.
5 minutes.
Woo. No, I was telling James this morning because he came out. He's like, "Oh," because I started making his cup of coffee, and he was like, "I was gonna make you a cup of coffee." I was like, "Well, it's like on an airplane. You got to get your own oxygen first." And then I was like, "Wait, that means I should make my coffee first, not your coffee." So maybe the rules, anyway, they probably still do apply. Like, make your coffee first, and then you can make coffee for everyone else. No, we were talking a little bit about this hot mess express side of things, and I was thinking about this stuff because last week James and I took a road trip. We flew out to Montana and drove a friend's car back across the country. So, and we stopped and met with friends in Utah and met with our farmer friend and in Nebraska, and he drove us around and we looked at the 1,500 acres that he um, takes care of, and we got to see how the wheat fields were doing, and it was a lot of fun too, and just pick up nuggets of people's lives along the way, which is amazing. But I have these stories that I want to tell from that time, but my head in the drive part because Steph, we drove through the seven plagues of Egypt on Wednesday. Not even joking. I'll try to do this
Cool.
fast. There was a infestation of crickets. Mormon crickets is what they're called. There were millions of them on the road. I'll have to send you a picture. I was like, did somebody spill something? Is that dirt? And then I realized it was all hopping.
Wow. Eesh.
Anyway, so we drove through that. We drove through a snow whiteout blizzard through Colorado. It's mid-May, and so you know this is in Canada, but like, but we
It
were
happens.
used to that from the southeast to be driving through 2 feet of snow on top of a mountain. Then there was a thunderstorms in Denver. I got a really cool picture of lightning. By the way, guys, there's an app that you can get that captures lightning. So you get the app and you turn it on, and it will take a photograph when the lightning strikes. And so you can
Oh,
look like a big
cool.
old professional. And it's a free app. I'll try to put the link to it in the chat. I probably should make a note or I'll forget. I'll just draw a lightning strike, and maybe I won't think Harry Potter. Maybe I'll think lightning app. Okay, so we had the lightning, and then in the middle, like we're almost to our friend's house in Nebraska. We start getting these emergency alerts for a dust storm. I'm not even joking. So we went from locusts to the whiteout to the thunderstorm with the lightning in downtown Denver to this dust storm where it says if you can lose visibility to 0% in a moment. And if that happens, get off as far off the road as you can, turn your lights off, and take your foot off the brake. And I was like, why would you do? And then I realized if people are coming up behind you and they see brake lights, they think that they're still on the road, and they don't know if you're moving or not because of the dust. And so a lot of
Wow.
people get rear-ended in that time period. So you just kind of have to sit and wait the storm out. Okay, why am I talking about all these things? There was a lot that happened. That was just Wednesday. Yeah, driving.
That was an hour of Wednesday.
And then we get in St. Louis an hour after the tornadoes that went through there. Anyway,
Oh gosh,
we're
yeah.
just like wet in the world. But there are these stories that I want to tell. And there's a part of me, our friend Sean Walchef, he talks about document, don't create.
Hmm.
And so the Hot Mess Express is a lot about documenting the things that happened, and being able to post those things. But I have to cut myself a break in the sense of I think I've got to post it as soon as it happens. And I kind of wanted my point in this as I hand it back to you, Steph, is giving you this permission slip to go back and look through older content, older stories, tell the stories that we don't know, that happened, the funny moments, the crazy moments, the things that you've come through, because sometimes people need to know about the journey, that it's not always kicks and giggles. Sometimes it's locusts and
Yep.
dust storms. But I'm gonna cut myself a break there because I still want to tell these stories. Now, something I encourage you to do in these moments is you have a voice memo feature on your phone. Just turn on the recording and start telling the story of whatever it is. The new app on your phone, it's not a new app, but the new features on the app will actually transcribe that for you. So you could have your story in audio form, but you also have it in text form. Just to get down some of the details, like some of my friends, some of the stories they were sharing. I don't want to lose those stories, and I will if
Hmm.
I walk away too long from it. But because I want to go back and revisit some of these ideas. I know that was a lot, Steph, but I will hand it back to you.
Well, I mean, listen, it's that friendly reminder that we all need to hear. We also need to remember that it's not just about sharing it in the moment, whatever the story is, whatever you're documenting. It's also the fact that your community, your online community, is constantly shifting. It's always changing. You're getting some new people in, maybe somebody's recommended that, to their friends, to their clients. Oh, you got to follow Elizabeth. You've got to check out the work that she's doing around real estate and how she's utilizing gifts to help brands build their awareness campaign or spark that joy. So we have to remember that it's not just even in this moment or this week or this month. It's going back and looking at some of that content. So if we're struggling for the new stuff and we're still documenting what's happening to us in a 1 hour drive across America, and everything that we've just experienced, it's also that what content have you put out in the last month, the last 2 months, last 6 months? That in my world, sometimes I refer to that as evergreen content, stuff that's always true to you. It's about your experience. It's those educational posts. It's the, reintroduce myself, and get people. Wasn't that cool? Like, where did that come from? It is the caffeine, but it's that notion that we always need to be thinking that our community is changing, and it's not. And I've fallen guilty to it as well. It's, ooh, what haven't I talked about yet? What's new that I can talk about? What new thing can I do? It's not always about the new. It is about that revisiting. It is about creating, again, evergreen content. And if evergreen is a term that's new to people, it simply means is that it will always be relevant, regardless about what's happening in the news today, what's trending. It's these pieces of content that, whether it's 6 months old, 6 weeks old, possibly even 6 years old, it's still going to be relevant for either the service offering that you have, the industry that you're in. And so thinking through those pieces of content actually makes it a little bit easier to show up, because you know that that stuff won't change. It always holds true to who you are or what you do and how you do it. Back over to you, Elizabeth.
I love that. I love that. And that the community is changing. What I, you know, and it's that idea of even repurposing or retelling that story. I have a friend, he still uses his highlights to do that. Like if he's told a story, especially like in his Instagram stories,
Mm-hmm.
he'll set up a highlight that is for that particular story. So if he references it, because he has new people in the community at that point, and he references the time, it's Carlos, by the way, Carlos Whitaker. He references the time that he went to the Precious Moments Museum. Do you know like the little figurines? And he's so
Yes.
funny. He's like, I don't think they've. Never mind. You'll have to watch it. But if you go to his Instagram account and swipe across his highlights and tap precious moments, you'll get to
Can you
see
see
his
what I'm doing right now?
his
Carlos.
adventure there, because I don't think they had really ever seen anyone that looked like him come through those doors. But he'll reference it in stories that he's telling, but he doesn't want to leave his community, the new community, out of the joke. And
Sure.
so he may reference it, but then the next like story, he's like, by the way, if you want to know what happened in this story, just check out the highlight that on my feed that says this thing. And so I think that's a great way to loop people back into the story. And so I love that stuff about community. Um, but yeah. No, so I think that I'm reading a new book, Stephanie.
Mm-hmm.
It is Mel Robbins, The five
Oh,
second
let them?
rule. No,
Oh, okay.
I want to. That one's next, but the
Okay.
5 second rule. I'm behind the ball when it comes to catching up with us. But it's really been helping me of not stopping myself or not
Mm-hmm.
blocking things by doing that countdown of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just even in the last day of obstacles, things that I'm trying to come up against. And it's that whole idea too of like we ask ourselves, is this something I should even post? And if you if you hesitate, then you may never post it. And so I do want to say that sometimes you just kind of have to do the thing, and just post the thing. I loved your post, Steph, today of your weekend one that you did, where you have just a screenshot of this moment. You didn't have to fix your hair for it, nothing, but added the blurred behind, added the little photo in there, and then of course the next one is this super fun boomerang of your day. And I was like, man, I want one of those. But
It was yummy, I'm not gonna lie. Go figure, it was an espresso martini. What?
hot mess espresso. I love it. So I totally agree, but just even bringing people along in those moments, because it's honestly, Stephanie, what I felt like is, man, I can't wait for when I get a weekend with Stephanie. And maybe it spurred somebody on. I can't go with Stephanie, but maybe I could call my friend and maybe we can go and just have, one of these moments too. And so what I'm hoping it does is, it sparks that, but it also is, it lets you know it's a part of Steph. Like, because you're giving us this full picture of, I love talking educational stuff, but I also love showing you life stuff too. And so anyway, I'll hand it back to you.
Well, no, I mean, I think and that's exactly it. And over the course of the last, 3 years, I think now we've been having these conversations. It's I refer to them as content pillars, right? Some people call them content buckets. And it's just, again, another way to map out like what are the pieces or what are the types of content that I can create, but it needs to be well rounded. You can't just always push out what you do. It's people connect and do business with people. So they need to know, oh my gosh, this girl, like, she loves her caffeine, in all forms, right? And yes, I do. I mean, I'm not always high energy, but that is part of me. And that also means that some people won't connect with me, and that's completely okay. They may follow the journey or they may want the educational tips, right? Because you're putting in the how to's, you're teaching them some things, you're building out that evergreen content, you're using or teaching them the new features, all of the stuff. So they like that part and they will watch or continue to stay in my community for that purpose. But they don't connect with the highly or fully caffeinated Stephanie, or, I don't do events, and so that isn't meaningful to me, or that doesn't resonate, or I can't do that because she lives there. Well, first of all, guys, things happen online all the time, and there's real communities being built. But it is true, I'm not for everyone. There might be pieces of my content, and that's why I like to show up and create those educational pieces that people just, because here's a quick win, here's a do this. You don't need to work with me, you don't need to sign up for something, just take this, and if this helps you because I'm coming from a place of service, then great, I've done my job. And it's those types of things. And so we have to remember when we are showing up, regardless of the size or the follower count that you have, there is going to be this ebb and flow in your community. With Instagram, as you referred to it, I mean, there's over 1 billion people on that platform. There's over 1 billion people on TikTok. Not everyone's going to see your content. Not everyone's going to see it all the time. It's the way in which the algorithm serves up this content to us. And so, how do we be strategic? Still show up as ourselves, still give ourselves grace to be able to go back and revisit or retell those stories, knowing that our community is changing, and still do the business. Because my business is not me showing up on social media. To some people, that is exactly what they do, that is their business. I'm trying to show up and do the client deliverables and all of the other things that I'm doing. And by the way, I also try and show up on my own social media accounts. But that's so small of a piece of the work that I do, just like it's a very small piece of what you do, Elizabeth. And I think that's a real challenge for small business owners because, hello, they're trying to generate that next contract. They're trying to make sure that they're delivering solid, quality, top quality stuff to maintain a contract or to get a new one. And they're maybe going, listen, I'll get around to talking about my business when I can. And maybe that just doesn't come up as frequently as some would like, including myself. So give yourself some grace. And that's why this notion of repurposing content, pushing something that is in your feed into another way, whether it's a LinkedIn article now, and then flipping that into a carousel over on Instagram, or going live on one of your favorite platforms to give your top 3 tips. Just give yourself grace as you start to create what that could look like. And if you need help, that's when you go, hey, I've been following these people, or I listen in on
Mm-hmm.
Cultivate. They've got
Mm-hmm.
some good ideas. Like, reach out, ask the question. There's no harm in doing that.
Right. Right.
That was a lot because I'm fully passionate about it.
It was really really good though, because especially reading the comments, um and so Karen Burke of Go Goosey, and I added her link to the chat. So people, if you're watching, go follow Karen over on Instagram at Go Goosey. But she said, I keep doing everything on the grid, but I'm not great at separating certain things to stories, and I have no clue about highlights. So I'm going to talk about that in
Oh,
a second. She goes on to say this is for her side business, Go Goosey. And then she says, I used to do all reels on the grid about me, but someone said that to keep that to stories, and she's still learning. So, okay, Karen, here's how I
hmm.
want to break it down for you. And I know Steph is probably going to have some thoughts too. But your stories are only for people that are already following you. So when you think about posting a story, you think about the fact that these are people that have already said yes. And this is where they get extra special content in the sense of behind the scenes. Maybe you share your random thoughts for the day. Maybe you bring them along on a walk. Maybe you show them an unboxing of new product, or etc. And so think of it as these are the people who have subscribed to your channel. Now, the only caveat to what I'm saying, the disclaimer on this, is if in your stickers, and I highly recommend this, especially if you have a brick and mortar shop, um, or if you're kind of trying to target a certain location, when you use the location sticker in your Instagram stories, you have the potential of being served up to anyone who watches content for that city, for that country, for that state. I had one once, Stephanie, that got picked up by the United States. Like a location type account thing. And so just
That's
keep that in
cool.
mind, that if you tag the location, you have a potential of being seen by wider audiences. Stories used to have the option of hashtags. I don't, in the US, they shut it off. I don't know if it's still shut off for Canada or if
No,
any other
it's
countries.
available in Canada.
We have it available, but it doesn't do anything. It's
Oh,
like it doesn't actually work because people were abusing it during
oh,
several of the
yeah,
elections
yeah,
to
yeah.
harass the
We
other
don't do
side.
politics.
So they shut it off, and so because you used to be able to be found by hashtags in your stories.
Yeah.
So in the UK, Karen, you might want to double check that, because you could add a hashtag that you're wanting to be found for, whether it's for new moms or for children's clothing or something like that. So check out your homework on that to see if hashtags. And one way that you'll know is in your analytics. It'll show how many people came to watch my content because of the location thing.
That's right.
It may show you how many people saw it because of the hashtag thing. So, okay, I know I'm getting really detailed, but my main thing is your stories are for your community, and just kind of that background, kind of grungy in the moment, not super curated. It's also a place, Karen, where I would start to ask your community when they're using your product or when they're giving it as a gift, that they tag your account, and you need to tell them to tag you in it and say, tag me in your stories. And then you'll start to get notifications or messages that says, there's a button that shows up that says, add this to your story. And so it's a way for your community, people in the stories, when you add it to your story, people get to see your product in use. They get to see it being given as a gift, and it may trigger, oh yeah, my cousin's niece's friend is having a baby. I need to pick up a present for them. This will be a great place that's
Mhm.
local and that I can support a small business when I do this. And so I want to recommend that. And so then on your grid feed, Yes, it's a great idea to alternate between reels and static content and carousels. So let's say you get a new line of onesies, you could make a carousel where somebody could actually swipe through and shop through the different items. But then you can make it the same post and do just one of them at a time as a static post, so you could start to fill that out, and then jump on there and tell some of the stories, some of the and you can reenact them. Do you know what I mean? Like, because sometimes I think we think, well, I don't have footage of this person opening it and blah 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 blah. No, you can just do some B-roll of you packing up a onesie to send and tell the story in a voiceover or in a text form on top of it, saying, there was this mom. Like, for instance, I have a friend in the hospital right now. She's way early, so she's gonna have to stay in the hospital until she has the baby, and they're trying to keep the because her water already broke, and I think she still has 20 weeks to go, and so they're just trying. And so telling a story where we were able to give her this gift of hope, of prayer, praying over this onesie, of hope that this baby will be fully formed and will be fully wild, just like his
Mhm.
mom. And so how could you tell a story where it's in court, and they may not always be that emotional. It may just be, this was her first baby and she loved the outfit and blah 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 blah. Anyway, so I know I'm telling a lot of things, but yeah, keep that in mind. Stories are people that are already following you for the most part, and then in your main feed doing that thing. So I know we're at our time, so I'll let you talk, Steph, and then you can
No, it's
dismiss.
so good. I mean, this is the stuff, right? Like um it's these, I find them to be the easier principles to put into practice.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we think about it, and it's like, oh, there's so many buckets and places to go on a platform like Instagram. That's why I love Instagram. It's because we have to remember that people consume content differently. Like some people just love the good old scroll, go through that
Yep.
static feed,
Yep.
and we
That's
are
good.
loving
That's good.
everything that is being served up. And other people are like, all the video, please, all the video. So reels, reels, and a few more
Yep.
reels. And then there's others that like the stories, or as you referred to it earlier, Elizabeth, reminded about highlights, and
Yep.
how to be able to create those highlights,
Oh yeah.
meaningful moments. Think about it like your portfolio of work,
Mhm.
whatever
Mhm.
that is. If you're a service-based business, if you're a product-based business, these highlights, these moments. So if you don't have a website or you're thinking, oh my goodness, whatever, think about it like that. Those are pockets of information that people can go back to. And it's so easy to be able to move through. Now, again, it takes practice, muscle memory, right? Flex the muscle, push
Mhm.
the buttons, move the content around. And that's why repurposing, again, there's so much power in it. So to take your example of, the feed post,
Mhm.
great. Now push that to a story, particularly if you're using, a carousel
Mhm.
that has a number of things on it. And that first um, feed, or the static piece that somebody sees is, I'll use the example of today's post for myself. The difference between digital marketing and content marketing. Like, what's the difference?
Yeah.
And so it may be a carousel post,
Mhm.
right? And there's lots of ways to describe the differences between digital and content marketing. Very important to know the difference. Okay, great. So now I already have that pushed through to my feed on Instagram, and I want to share it now to my stories. Well, what am I going to do? I can easily use the airplane tool, right? Click on the airplane tool, click the copy link while I'm doing it before I hit add to story. Now I've got the front piece up on the story. Wonderful. It says digital marketing versus content marketing. What's the difference? And now I can use that link feature to be able to drop it in there and say, click here to read the post or read the caption or whatever the case
Mhm.
is, dropping that
Mhm.
GIF over the link.
Yep.
And what it does is in the stories, to your point that you were telling Karen, hey, push to the stories and it's seen by the community that's
Mhm.
already, showed up and said,
Yep.
I like what you're doing
Yep.
here. Now you're serving up value to them and you're saying, hey, you want to know more about this? Click here. And you're
Yep.
pushing them back down into your feed
Yep.
so that they get even more
Mhm.
information and they get to read the caption and things like this. So again, think, You don't need to think so big in your strategy, but
Right.
you do need to start to look at ways to maximize or leverage where you have your content already, and understanding and
Like that.
recognizing that people consume content differently. And you can certainly on a platform like Instagram be able to move it between a feed post, a story, a reel, and don't forget the highlights, and
Yep.
making sure that when it's a story, if you want to add it to your highlights and create a new highlight, just click the highlight button and then name it whatever it is, onesies, spring 2025, whatever that is. And now it will sit up perfectly underneath your bio. So when people are checking out your bio, learning a little bit more about Elizabeth and how gifts work, now they can start to see the types of things that Elizabeth does, her service offerings, her product offerings, and I can go in and I can look at it. So think of it like a portfolio. That was a lot to break down quite quickly, a big strategy, but go ahead, Elizabeth.
And I know we need to go because we're past our time, and you probably need to get on the road. Just very quickly, on your feed, yours will probably look like this. But if you hit the little plus sign, you can add new highlights. But Karen, I looked at Go Goosey, and if you want to, if you tap on the highlights you already have, down in the corner, hit the three dots, then hit Edit Highlight. And it will let you change the title of that highlight. So you can start to use that, in that certain way. Now you can also go in and say it says share to story or share, you can copy the link I think to the highlights itself. Or what you can do is screenshot your feed like this. Even though I'm going to do it wrong, I'm screenshotting it. Go into where the little marker is and circle the highlight that you want to talk about, and then tell people to go to your in your stories, post this photo and say this is where I tell the story of that particular item or that thing. And so it's another count. You can almost use it like another way that you're pinning a post to that place and have people to be able to use it. Now people used to get pretty schmancy with their cover photos on their highlights, and you can do that as well if you want to make it more themed to your brand, etc. And so it's just a fun way to kind of have a lot of people will use an about us there, or say start here, where you tell
Mhm.
the history of the product, you talk about what makes it different and that type of stuff. And so you can have that, but you can do that on your post too, and have pinned posts that are about us and all of those things. So anyway, I hope that makes sense. But that's how you can. And sorry, and when you hit that plus sign to start a new highlight, it starts to access your archived stories that you have posted. That's the content that gets posted in these highlights. So you can artificially, I guess, fill that. So let's say you have the spring collection. That means that you want to post this in your stories at the item, like one of the items, talk about it, the next item, talk about it, and then make a highlight and go back and add all of those to that story and say, here's our spring collection if you want to check out this thing. Okay, that's all the things. I'm going to stop talking. And I'm going to hot mess express it and
Oh,
take another
and
sip.
you know what? It was perfect timing. I'm to the bottom of my cup, which is always sad when that happens, but it's probably safe for everyone. So whether you were watching live or watching back on replay, thanks for being here. Cultivate Weekly is usually every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Mountain. Go ahead and click subscribe to make sure that you can come back and find us on YouTube, or you can catch us on, just about every one of those social media platforms on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, you name it. We're usually there. Cups up to each and every one of you. Thank you for showing up and joining us today for the Hot Mess Espresso.
Hot mess espresso.